pals, I'm here today to do a birthday book haul. So it was my birthday about a week ago. I bought a few books, I treated myself to quite a few, and then I also have a few other books that have made their way into my home from the library and various places. So I thought I would talk about all of them here. I have 18 books, so I'm going to have to just crack on. I will say I've been waiting all morning for the wheelie bin lorry to finish my road. I kept stepping outside to see if they were done because they're quite loud. I thought they were done and I started and they have just appeared outside my house. So I hope you can't hear loads of wheelie bin mechanics. I apologise if you can, but I don't want to put this off anymore because I'm just really excited to talk about these books. So firstly, my friend kindly bought me Meat-Free Mowgli, Simple and Delicious Plant-Based Indian Meals. This is written by Nisha Katona, who is the person who designed Mowgli. They are a restaurant, like an independent restaurant chain. There's only a few of them in the UK. I've been to the one in London. The food is amazing. I borrowed this from the library actually. I borrow lots of cookbooks from the library to test if they work for me. There's so many different things about a cookbook, I think, that can work for you or not, and so I prefer to test them out before I buy. And this was one that I had sort of kept on my radar as one I wanted to pick up. My friend did not know that, but she bought me it. I'm really excited because this is sorted into sections based on the type of food. So there's a section for mushrooms, there's a section for potatoes, a section for onions and things like that. I'm particularly excited for the section about potatoes and also the section with cauliflowers and broccoli because, yeah, love that type of veg in Indian cooking. So gonna give a go to a few of these recipes, and I'm really excited because I don't actually have an Indian cookbook, which is crazy because I love Indian food. This next one I borrowed from the library a month or so ago when it came out because it's a new release, and I loved it. And I made quite a few of the recipes from it, and as soon as I returned it to the library, I missed it. And so I gave my brother a list of books I was interested in, this being one of them, and I was so happy when I saw this was one of the books he'd chosen to get me. And that is Healthy Made Simple by Ella Mills. I guess I should mention here, if you don't know, I'm vegan, and I've been vegan maybe for 6 years now, I'm not sure. And I would always have classed myself in the first few years as a sort of junk food vegan, but in the last few years I've become much more brave with my cooking, and in this year in particular I'm really trying to get much better, and I'm also learning to bake, and I've been loving it. And I found this cookbook was brilliant because a lot of the time would think, oh, I don't love really healthy food. I'm not somebody who would order a salad, for example, but I made a salad from this a few times, and Johnny is the last person who would eat a salad, my partner, and even he tried it and thinks it's really good. And this is the salad, and it is spinach, rocket and kale massaged with olive oil and lemon juice. I never thought I'd be somebody who would massage kale. And then you put avocado and croutons on, and then you make this delicious dressing out of sunflower seeds, cashew, oat milk, Dijon mustard, nutritional yeast, and a couple of other bits, and it is amazing. And tonight for dinner, I am making, can I find it? Possibly not. Yes, I can. Spicy black bean, quinoa and avocado bowls. Now I would eat quinoa. I don't know if Johnny will. So I will probably do brown rice instead. But I love black beans and we haven't had any in a while, so can't wait to try that. And this is great. It's got a section at the front with healthy bakes. So I want to make the carrot cake flapjacks, and I also really want to make the pesto and spinach savoury muffins. They look delicious. Can't wait to try those. And then the other book my brother picked up off the list I sent him, I was so happy he chose this one because I really wanted to read this one ASAP, is We Were Once a Family, A Story of Love, Death and Child Removal in America by Roxana Asgharian. This is a work of investigative journalism that came out quite recently. So happy to see that this was a paperback, and a floppy one at that, when it arrived, which I wasn't expecting. So this is about a pretty horrific crime that happened in 2018. I mentioned this a few times, but if you are new to the channel, I'm not a fan of true crime when it's, interested in all the morbid and horrible details and really fixated on the perpetrator of the crime and sort of diminishes the victim. What I am interested in is true crime that explores the society we live in that allows a crime like this to happen, creates an environment where crimes like this can so easily happen, rather than sort of losing the victim within that. And I read the prologue to this as soon as I got it, and this author like contacted the families of the victims and has very much been in touch with them throughout writing this. And yeah, a lot of sort of care and respect has been given to them. So in 2018, two, I think, married white women who had adopted, I think, 6 children. Yes, 6 black children from 2 different Texas families. They drove the car off a cliff and killed themselves and all of the children. And when there was an investigation into this, it turned out that actually there'd been a lot of concerns raised about these 2 women whilst they had the children and before they even adopted them, and they were just ignored. The families really wanted these children back and were never given them back. And it's an investigation into why it's so hard for families of colour to get their children back once they go into care, and why it's so easy for white people to sort of retain children, even when, you know, sort of middle class white people in this case, even when there's lots of things against them, basically. And I think this is going to be really brilliantly explored with a really deft hand, and I'm going to read this as soon as possible. So now we're on to the books that I bought myself, and I thought I'd stick with the non-fiction for now. I have a lot of books in this video that I think I'm going to love and could be my favourites of the year. And these next few non-fiction in particular, I just feel like could be 5-star reads for me. I read Kindle samples from a lot of these books, as many as I could. I try and do that now before purchasing books, and a lot of the time before even reserving them at the library. All 3 of these had to be imported because they are not published in the UK, and I think at least 2 out of the 3 are from independent publishers. They're quite sort of different formatted editions, which I always quite like. This next one, I started the Kindle sample and I couldn't stop reading it because it was so beautifully written. And the reason I decided to prioritise it is because this author has an essay collection coming out in a couple of weeks about friendship between women and girls, which is something I love reading about. But I thought it wasn't right to buy a pretty expensive new released hardback when she has a paperback out that I still have not read. So that is Negative Space by Lily Danziger. I really think I could love this author. This is her memoir. She's also compiled an essay collection about women writing about anger, which I'm really excited about. And like I said, she has this new essay collection coming out that she's written all the essays in. This memoir is about her relationship with her father. Her mother and father were both drug addicts, and they split up to sort of recover from this. And her father appeared to have been getting better and was in a really positive mental space, she thought, and then he died. And when she was a child, and many people thought that he had died because of his addiction. And this book is about her exploring the sort of mythology she created around her father. It says that he was part of the 1980s East Village art scene. He created provocative sculptures out of found materials and brought his young daughter into his gritty, iconoclastic world. She starts to question the mythologies he's created about him. The brilliant artist struck down in his prime, using his paintings, sculptures and prints as a guide to piece together a truer story. And the writing in this was just amazing from like the first sentence. So I think I'm going to love this, and I'm very excited to have a new author to hopefully love the work of. The next one is Pretty Baby by Chris Belcher. As soon as I saw this cover and this title when this came out a couple of years ago, I was so excited for it. And I actually think Footnote are a small UK press, so this is a UK publication, although by an American author. This is another memoir. This author, when she grew up, she was entered into pageant contests as a really young child, and she sort of thought that she would then live a traditional life in terms of femininity. But then as a teen, she came out as queer. And as a young woman, when she was at university, she became a dominatrix in LA. And she became renowned as the lesbian dominatrix of LA. And it says that in this searingly funny and perceptive memoir, we see through the eyes of a dominatrix turned academic how power, shame and desire can be explored and subverted. I think that sounds fascinating. I'm really interested in people who have been sex workers, reading about their experiences. In particular, I think it's interesting to read about sex workers who are queer and how they sort of navigate that throughout their work. And yeah, I'm just really interested in dismantling a lot of the prejudices that we hold against sex workers. And I think this is just going to be a really brilliant and intelligently written memoir, so cannot wait to get to it. Then an Australian publication is The Shape of Sound by Fiona Murphy. I think I saw Jen haul this a year or so ago, and since then have wanted to pick it up. And yeah, I have not been buying many books in the last couple of years, so it sort of hadn't got to the top of my list yet. But I absolutely love, again, the title, the cover. I don't really like wear pink in my life or have pink things, but I love pink on a book cover. I also love pink front doors. I think they're amazing. And yeah, I just think this is a great cover. This is about this author's life. It says that she kept her secret for 25 years, but then desperate to pursue her career, she tried hearing aids. Shocked by the sound of the world, she vowed never to wear them again. Eventually, she discovered that sign language would change her life and that deaf culture could be part of her identity. The Shape of Sound is a compelling exploration of sound, silence and the self, a memoir about the corrosive power of secrets and how deaf experiences and disability are shaped by economics, politics, medicines and social expectation. Again, read the start of this, think it's brilliantly written. And it's kind of odd because when I read True Biz by Sarah Novick, I was thinking, oh, like I don't know anyone deaf in my life. And then I was like, my nanny is deaf. And because she went deaf at a time period when it wasn't really that well accepted, she was never encouraged to learn sign language, and she was told she should lip read. So throughout my nanny's whole life, she's still alive now, she has always had to like take somebody with her to any medical appointments or like appointments with banks or anything, and so has lost any sense of real privacy because she, you know, a lot of the time these professionals won't talk in a way that makes it easy for her to lip read. As a family, we were aware of how we needed to sort of you know, communicate with her, and she could lip read perfectly as long as you were aware that you needed to like face her when you were talking. And yeah, when I read True Biz, it made me aware of all the ways in which her life could have been made easier and weren't because of a lot of prejudices. And so that's something I really want to, I found it fascinating in True Biz anyway, but something I would really like to read more about. And I think this memoir is going to brilliantly explore those things. Then next, I picked myself up a rather beautiful copy of Deep Water by Patricia Highsmith. This is the book club read for my Patreon book club this month. I'm hoping to start this today. I'm very excited about it. The first couple of paragraphs are excellent. This is about a man whose wife keeps having affairs and he pretty much despises her. And one of the men she has an affairs with, I think, goes missing, and he starts a rumour that he killed him in order to, make it look like he's not putting up with all the affairs, and because he's worried about the sort of lack of respect people are giving him. And then these rumours sort of become larger than themselves, and I think perhaps it says, as rumours spread, it's only a matter of time before Vic really does have blood on his hands. So I was in Waterstones the other day trying to decide what edition of this I wanted, because there are matching editions of all Patricia Highsmith's books, and I was thinking, you know, I really think she could be an author I love. I've only read Carol or The Price of Salt before, and so maybe I'd like matching editions. But this is a beautiful Virago edition, and this is part of a set where they all have these wonderful covers, but there's maybe 20 of them and they're all from different authors. But I decided to go for this one because a lot of the other books in that series I really like the look of. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of the other books in this series, because I hope to pick them up and can't wait to read this and discuss it with the book club members. Then the next ones, this was a recommendation from one of my patrons. As soon as they mentioned the title, I was like, I love that title. And they mentioned that it was a really great coming of age story, which is one of my like top favourite things to read about in fiction, and in fact in memoir form as well. And that is Some Strange Music Draws Me In by Griffin Hansberry. I really like this shiny cover, and it has rather beautiful French flaps as well. So I can't wait to read this summer. It's set in summer in 1984 in working class Massachusetts. Mel is 13, drinking a slush puppy at the drugstore when she hears a voice, deep and movie star dramatic, and that is Sylvia. Sylvia's shameless swagger and tough girl trans femininity sparks fury among her new neighbours and throws Mel into conflict with her mother and her best friend. Narrating this blistering coming-of-age tale from 2019 is Max, formerly Mel, who is on leave from his job for defying codes around trans identity, and he's back in Swatham. It says this is a timely and captivating narrative of self-realisation amid the everyday violence of small-town intolerance. It builds into an explosive conclusion, illuminating the unexpected way that difference can provide a ticket to liberation. And interestingly, I think this is a debut with this name, but the author previously wrote under the name Jeremiah Moss, and he had 2 books out under that name. So I need to look into that as well. I find it interesting when authors write under different names. So yeah, again, loved the start of this, and yeah, can't wait to dive into this in the summer, because it'll be a wonderful summer read, I think. And this next one was on the Carol Shields Prize longlist. The Carol Shields Prize is a sort of equivalent of the Women's Prize, but in Canada, and I believe they have women and non-binary authors on the list. And out of all these sort of different Women's Prize type lists around the world, this long list was the one I was the most excited about. I thought it looked amazing. Quite a lot of the books I hadn't heard of and just immediately wanted to read. So this is one of the ones I've been able to get hold of in paperback that wasn't like too expensive, but I've also managed to get hold of a couple of the others on audio, so I'll be reading those ones as soon as possible too. But the one I have here is a beautiful cover, I think, and that is Between Two Moons by Aisha Abdul Gawad. And this is a coming of age story, as you know I love, and something that I'm even more excited about is this is about twin sisters. This is set during the holy month of Ramadan in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and they plan to embark on a summer of teenage revelry, but this plan coincides with the release of their older brother from prison, whose mysterious behaviour threatens to undo the delicate family balance. It says this is an intimate family story and polyphonic portrait of life under the spectre of Islamophobia. It challenges the reader to interrogate their own assumptions, asking questions of allegiance to faith, family and community, and what it means to be a young Muslim in America. So many things there just make me think I will really enjoy this book. And I read the first couple of pages as soon as it arrived, and again, think it's beautifully written. Cannot wait to get stuck in. The next one is another family drama, and that is Salt Houses by Hala Alian. This is the debut novel from the author who wrote The Arsonist City, which was a book I absolutely loved, and I spoke about recently in a recommendations video for family dramas, which I'll link above. I've put off buying this because I don't really love any of the covers that are out there, but I finally crumbled because I was like, do you know what, I am going to love this book regardless of... I just think this is a little bit of a generic cover, and I also don't love how glossy it is. So it says that on the eve of Alia's wedding, her mother reads her future in a cup of coffee dregs. She keeps them to herself, but they soon come to pass in the wake of the Six-Day War of 1967. We watch as the family are forced to move from Nablus to Kuwait City, and Alia and her husband reluctantly build a new life. And it says that the family have to scatter to Beirut, Paris and Boston. And yeah, I think we're sort of going to follow their lives throughout all the different countries and sort of time periods. So yeah, I think this will be amazing. And like I said, I really loved her newest novel, The Arsonist City. These next two are books that I featured in a 5-star predictions video. I predicted all the books would get 5 stars based on their premise, and then I read the first chapter and like reassessed whether I thought I'd give them 5 stars. Both of these I thought were more likely to be 4-star reads, but still super excited for them. And my library didn't have copies, so I've treated myself. This first one is The Damages by Genevieve Scott. I stumbled across this when I was looking for books that were similar to I Have Some Questions For You by Rebecca Mackay, which I really enjoyed when I read that, I think last year. And I'm hoping to speed through this as well. This again is set in 2 time periods. I really enjoy that when you're sort of seeing someone look back. So in 2020, Roz is looking back on her life in 1988 when she went to college in Ontario and her roommate went missing during a snowstorm, and this panic search ensued and Roz is blamed for not keeping a closer eye on the girl, and that sort of shadows her for the next 2 decades of her life. In 2020, her husband is being accused of sexual assault, and this accusation brings new details of this old disappearance to life. It says Roz must take a hard look not only at the father of her child, but also at her own mistakes, her own trauma, and that the supposedly liberal period she grew up in. I think this is going to be an interesting one with perhaps an unlikable and untrustworthy narrator, which is something I enjoy. And again, I'm hoping to speed through this. It says, one of the first novels I've read that does a brilliant job of unpacking the duplicity and dishonesty of the 1990s. The damages held me riveted in a tight, icy grip. I think that sounds brilliant. And the next one is Half a Lifelong Romance by Eileen Chang. I've heard amazing things about this. This is translated from the Chinese by Karen S. Kingsbury. And this is set in 1930s Shanghai. And we follow as these two young people meet and sort of start this romance, but family pressures and like outside events prevent them from getting married. And it says, can the pair find their way back to each other, or will the trauma of their past obscure the way? It is a rich and moving tale of love, hopefulness, and the malign forces that, despite our greatest efforts, can overwhelm us. I read the first couple of chapters of this one when I did the try a chapter tag video. And yeah, I haven't read any classics or modern classics in a while, and this really reminded me of why I used to read a lot more of them. And so I'm hoping to really enjoy this. And then, you know, she's got a lot of other books that sound really interesting. So I'm hoping to be able to find a new author to enjoy and read more of her work. Then I have a stack of books here that I did not get for my birthday. This first one was kindly sent to me from a publisher. And then I have a few library books that I thought you would be interested in because I haven't spoken about them yet. This first one, another brilliant pink cover, is Lost in the Garden by Adam S. Leslie. This is described as sorrowful, uncanny, and utterly stunning, and a dazzlingly intricate folk horror phantasmagoria. And all of the blurbs are by horror authors, so I'm a little bit frightened. It's being compared to Midsummer, which I haven't watched because I'm also scared of. It says that Heather, Rachel and Antonia are going to Almonby. Heather needs to find her boyfriend, who like many went and never came back. Rachel has a mysterious package to deliver and her life depends on it. And Antonia, poor love-struck Antonia, just wants the chance to spend the day with Heather. So they set off through the idyllic yet perilous English countryside in which nature thrives in abundance and summer lasts forever. And as they travel through ever-shifting geography and encounter strange voices in the fizz of shortwave radio, the harder it becomes to tell friend from foe. Creepy, dreamlike, unsettling and unforgettable, you're about to join the privileged few who understand exactly why we don't go to Almonby. I mean, whoever wrote that blurb should get a prize because that is a brilliant blurb and I really want to read this now. And the publisher contacted me about this a couple of months ago and asked if I was interested in a copy. And I said yes, which is something I rarely accept anymore because my TBR got really out of hand a few years ago when I was sent a lot of copies of books from publishers that I never got around to reading. And then, I didn't hear back. And then when I was in the bookshop the other day, I saw this and I was like, oh, this is the book I was really interested in. And I nearly bought it, which is very lucky I didn't because it arrived 2 days later. And I am very excited. I read the first page and the first paragraph is brilliant. It's about the noise ice cream van makes in England and sort of describes an ice cream van, but the way in which it's described makes it sound kind of dreamlike and eerie. It's set a really brilliant tone for the novel. So again, can't wait to read this summer. Then a book I've meant to read for years and I've finally got a copy of from the library is The House Opposite by Barbara Noble. I read a Persephone edition book called Doreen by her quite a few years ago, which was about a young girl who was evacuated from London to the English countryside, and I really enjoyed it. So I've meant to read another of her books since then. This is published by Furrowed Middlebrow, who are a British independent publisher. All their books have these wonderful covers, and they're all sort of books mainly written in the 20th century, I think, by female authors, and I want to read so many of them. This is about a woman who is a secretary and she is having this sort of illicit affair, and there's also other things going on in her neighbourhood that's sort of secret and under wraps. And this is set during the Blitz, and it's about how all those secrets can kind of continue to happen during the Blitz because it allows for lots of darkness and secrecy. Barbara Noble lived and worked in London throughout the war, so this is supposed to be a really brilliant depiction of what it was like to live during the Blitz. And I absolutely love books either set during the interwar years or set in England with the people who were left behind. A book I loved that in part is set during the Blitz is The Night Watch by Sarah Waters, which is a brilliant book. And so yeah, I am so interested in this one and can't wait to get stuck in. I also think the title The House Opposite is great. The next 4 are all new releases. My library is very good at buying new releases. A few of these they'd already bought and a couple of them I asked them to buy. I think these next 2 I asked them to buy. The first one is Company by Shannon Sanders. This is a book that came out, I think, last year in the US. It's just come out in the UK. I think it has a rather lovely cover. And this sounds amazing. This is an interconnected short story collection, which I don't think there is enough of, about a African-American family, but you only visit them at times of like celebrations. So you see them at weddings, at birthday parties, at christenings. And it says that those type of events can cause a lot of drama because people who perhaps would normally avoid one another are forced into each other's company, and they can be quite stressful events in terms of organisation and like finances and stuff. And so this sounds amazing. I think there are 4 sisters and their sprawling circle of daughters, sons, parents and cousins, friends and lovers. It's a multi-generational, joyfully honest expression of belonging and of how far we sometimes land from home. I've heard really good things about this one. Can't wait to read it. The next one I think is going to be a bit of a maybe dark, twisty book. And that is Like Happiness by Ursula Villarreal Mora. And this is like a little bit, tiny bit different to me because I am not a massive fan of reading books about young women who get into relationships with older men, particularly if those older men sort of like hold a position of power over them, like they're their professor or something. I just think there's an awful lot of those stories. There's been a lot more coming out in the last couple of years, and there's only so many times I can read about it. But this sounds like a little bit of a different spin on that, because the premise of this is that our protagonist, when she's a young woman, she writes her favourite author a fan letter and he writes back. It says, an intoxicating, undefinable, all-consuming relationship ensues. 10 years later, a slew of allegations emerge that will shatter the story you have told yourself, leaving behind a blank page for something new. It is a headfirst dive into a young woman's destructive obsession with a legendary writer. Razor-sharp, delectably witty, and told with blistering emotional honesty, this electric debut novel reckons with the stories we choose to believe about the past, our relationships, and above all, about ourselves. I really like when the words blistering and electric are used in a blurb. It says it's a stunning coming-of-age novel about power, manipulation, and complicity. And T. Kira Madden, who wrote one of my favourite memoirs of all time, Long Live the Tribe of Fatherless Girls, which I would highly recommend, says it is an epic unravelling of every love story trope reclaimed as something sharp, seething, unsettling and true. This sounds amazing. I need to read this quickly before someone else requests it back at my library. These last 2 are memoirs that also have a sort of link to nature writing, which is something I would like to read more of, but I find that nature writing is incredibly dominated by white middle-class straight men, and I'm kind of bored of always hearing about the natural world through their eyes. But in the last couple of years, there's been a lot more books of nature writing coming out from women, in particular from women of colour, which is something I'm really interested in. So I asked my library to pick up a copy of this, and that is Unearthing a Story of Tangled Love and Family Secrets. So a few months after this author's father died, she found out that they were not biologically related. And it causes her to question everything her mother has ever told her. And she starts to look into her mother's life. And there's a lot of discussions of like tangled memories and truth and lies, which I've said already I love. It says it is written in the wild green language of soil, seed, leaf and mulch. A memoir of inheritance that goes far beyond hereditary. This is the story of what happens when we give up the weeded and pruned plots of our family histories and open ourselves up to a more expansive view of kinship. It is told through the passage of the seasons, which I love. I wish more books would do that. It is deeply thoughtful meditation on race, lineage, grief, and a tender testimony to the ineradicable love between a mother and a daughter. I think that sounds wonderful. And then It is currently the Norfolk and Norwich Festival in Norwich, where I live. We have it every summer. It goes on for a couple of weeks, and it is an amazing festival, sort of a cultural festival with a ton of different things going on within the arts. And there is a subset of events that are like literary events, and I always look into them. And one of them caught my eye because it is a discussion between two women of colour who have recently written memoirs, personal essay collections that have a big focus on the natural world. And one of them is by Jessica J. Lee. I didn't realise she had a new book coming out, so I've requested that at the library and I'm waiting for a copy of it. But the other was by an author I'd never heard of, so I thought, you know what, I want to try and read both of those books and then attend that event. So I immediately requested this and picked it up from my library very quickly. And that is Uprooting from the Caribbean to the Countryside, Finding Home in an English Country Garden by Marshall Farrell. And it says that the question of what is home has troubled this author her whole life. She left behind the pristine beaches and emerald hills of Trinidad, seeking a life in psychiatry, and then she uprooted herself again, this time for the peaceful English countryside. She was the only black woman in her village, but when a global worldwide pandemic and a global racial reckoning collide, the upheaval of colonialism that has led her to this place begins to be unearthed. Is this really home, and can she ever feel truly grounded here? And she starts to return to her garden and view gardening in this sort of English garden through a psychotherapeutic lens. It says it's full of hope and healing. It is a book about finding home where we least expect it, and it invites us to reconnect to the land and ourselves. I would love to get more into gardening, and part of it is just like a financial thing. Like, I know it's one of those things that if I get into it, it could cost me a lot of money. So perhaps for some future life I will do that. But I grew up, my mum absolutely loves gardening. We always had an amazing garden, and so it's something I really like reading about, and I think seeing it through this lens sounds fascinating. So like I said, hoping to read this and the other book and then attend that event and hear both of these brilliant women speak. So those are all the books. I'm even more excited for all of them now. I've spoken about them, and it is really difficult doing these videos because now I want to start them all at once, and obviously that's not a good idea. So I need to figure out what order I'm going to read these in. So yeah, let me know down below if you've read any of these books, if you've heard of them, if you're interested in them, and of course I'm always interested in recommendations based on any of the themes I mentioned. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.